All right, Nick. Let's start here. And look, New Orleans on football again there's a lot of great articles always on there that everybody wants to go check out. But there's an article that's going to pique my interest from Cat Terrell in the Athletic today, and or not today, sometime in the last couple of days, and it's again about Jameis Winston over this offseason and what he's been doing in terms of trying to win the team over, who he's been training with. He's been training with Breeze's guy. He used to work with Todd Durkin. Apparently Jay Glazer as well, which I guess a lot of people do. Like, what do you know about the steps that Winston has taken this offseason, maybe in order to emulate some of the off seasons of Breeze past?
Yeah, so a lot of that work has actually been taking place in Tampa Bay with this guy he goes by Route God online, and that's kind of his business. And he's been working with a lot of the Saints receivers, and Jameis has been doing a lot of his workouts there. And actually, on our YouTube page, we have like a 20-minute interview with them, just talking about the work they're doing. And he's been with Jameis since the very early days in Tampa Bay. So they've worked together for 4 or 5 years. And the main thing that he talks about is just how his mentality has changed, and just the maturity that he's seeing, and just the outlook of how he's looking at the game and how he's thinking about going through his progressions, and that has changed over the last year. And there's just a maturity there that maybe wasn't in place before being with the Saints. And, there's just been a lot of growth with just the way some of these guys are running routes and that. Jawan Johnson's making the transition to playing tight end, and a lot of that work is taking place down there, just going through tight end routes. And, with Callaway, they've worked a lot together with just, the way he gets in and out of his cuts and his body movements, and, making growth there. So I think just overall this group working together is really, I think giving Jameis a little bit of a head start coming into training camp. And, phrasing it like that is perhaps a little bit misleading, because Taysom has been in this system for a while, and I think he's gotten a lot of the work in that he needs to with these guys, and he's not figuring out how to throw a pass to Mike Thomas because he's done it before. And last year, Jameis was the third quarterback. You don't get a lot of work in these practices. You're kind of just an observer. And, during that period Breeze was out, he was getting a little bit more work on the field. But overall, most of the year, those guys don't really do much. They come in the third quarterback, they get their reps in training camp, and then they're in the classroom, and they're kind of watching. So I think Jameis is kind of making up for a little bit of lost time, getting to where he needs to be. But, definitely having that chemistry with everyone and having, fresh momentum coming into training camp, I think is going to help him make a good run at that job.
Nick, one of the things we talked about right before you came on was the weapons that either quarterback is going to have and maybe not have for this New Orleans Saints team. Now you've got about $6 million in salary cap space. Do you assume the Saints will do anything with that $6 million, or do you think this roster and team is what it is right now?
I still think they got to do a couple things. Cornerback, obviously, huge need. That hasn't changed. It hasn't been addressed. They like some of the stuff that Paulson Adebo's doing in these camps and in the classrooms, but everything's still hedged with, there's still a long way to go. There's still a long way to go. And that might just be managing expectations, but when they first drafted him, they talked about him as being a bit of a project. So I think that's a huge gamble. And if you can address that, I think that's something that has to happen immediately. I'm surprised it hasn't happened yet. I don't know where they're looking. It just seems like something should have been done by now, and I think that has to happen real soon. You mentioned weapons. They could definitely add somebody else. I think that group will be fine with what they have. I think they can get by and win a lot of games. There's really never been a time in the Sean Payton era outside of Emmanuel Sanders where they really went out and spent a lot of money to acquire a wide receiver. And before Mike Thomas, they never really paid these guys a lot either. The tight end, they did Jimmy Graham. But outside of that, I mean, it's been pretty cost controlled. And I guess you can probably do a little bit more of that with Drew Brees. But I just think that, if we look at their history since '06, they just kind of are what they are at that position. And there's really never been, I think we've kind of misconstrued a luxury as a need in the fact that, who's the number two? Well, who's ever been the number two? It's just really never been a guy at that pedigree. So, I mean, at this point, obviously, you aren't going out and getting an Emmanuel Sanders. You're adding, just another solid guy to the rotation. And I think that is something that they can definitely do. Defensive tackle, I think, is the other spot where if they can make something happen, I think they definitely should. But, yeah, getting that $6 million, I think they got to go out and do a little bit of shopping and just, tie up those loose ends. And if they did that, I would feel so much better. Just corner. If they got a corner, they got Garyon Conley. Let's just use one name. If they got Garyon Conley, I would feel much better about the whole outlook of this team. I think he has upside too. I think he can still be a pretty good player, and if you can get Eli Apple type production out of him, I think you're in a good place, and you can weather those first 4 games, come back, Marshawn gets out there, and I think they'd be good to go. But yeah, they got to do something, and hopefully it happens soon.
Yeah, Nick, I'm glad that you mentioned the YouTube channel. I didn't even fully realize that was a resource that y'all had. You go to NewOrleans.football. It's right there at the top of the page. Just click on it. Go look at all the video content they have as well. So Jameis Winston is so as you said, he's beginning to work with those young guys who maybe don't normally get. I feel like he was definitely already winning over the locker room last year. I feel like he's been winning over this summer. Is he winning over you in terms of who's going to win this race between him and Taysom?
Based on the stuff he's saying, I'm a full believer. Every time there's a video of him and just talking to the huddle of the players, and I think his leadership comes through, and he says everything is the right thing to say, and it's hard not to buy into it. And yeah, look, these guys this week we talked to a lot of people on the team, and Jameis's leadership qualities just seem to come out a lot. And, I remember the year they were on Hard Knocks, and this was before the EW thing and kind of the perception had changed a little bit. But all the talk in the Saints locker room that year was just kind of about, like, man, you can just see what a natural leader Jameis is. And he was on another team in the division, and we were having these conversations just about how impressive he was as a person. And I think that's very evident. And look, his talent isn't a question. It's just the thought process on the field, not being a gunslinger, checking down, not trying to get 50 yards on every throw. If he makes the right decision, I've said this a million times, I think he can be a top 10 quarterback. It's just those decisions made him not a top 32 quarterback last year. And, that really has to change. And I think it can. And yeah, just everything we're seeing, I am a believer cautiously. It's really hard to gauge until you see it on the field. But as far as his offseason saying the right things, illustrating that he has the right mentality, it's easy to believe in it, just hearing him say the stuff. But we do actually have to see it at some point. But yeah, I do think I am in on him, and I do think that he's a little bit ahead right now heading into training camp.
So if Jameis comes on and he wins this job, then does Taysom Hill go back to the Swiss Army role?
It's a great question. I think Taysom really badly wants to be a quarterback. If it doesn't happen, I think he should. I think he should fully embrace that role. I think that's his best way of getting on the field. And if he doesn't win the job here, like, where's he going to win the job? And I hate to put it like that, but I don't think anyone believes in him as a quarterback like the Saints do. And if it doesn't happen now, when is it going to happen? You could have a great career as a backup quarterback. I think he's good enough to be a backup, a lot of places. And we saw that last year. It wasn't perfect, but he was able to manage some games. A couple times it wasn't as good as it needed to be, but I think he's as good as a lot of the backups in the league. And sure, you could do that and probably hang around for a while, but if he wants to be, an on-the-field football player, I think if he fully embraces this other role, I think he could even be better at it than he is. It's just kind of been something that's been on the back burner, and he's preparing to be a quarterback, and it's just like, okay, I'll go play tight end now. And if he actually focused on being a tight end and went to a route doctor and worked on that stuff, I think he could be really, really good at that role. And if quarterback isn't it, maybe that's, the way if he wants to play, he should embrace that fully.
Yeah, he's paid enough where, like, he should be embracing fully whatever the team needs him to do, right? Like, they bet on Taysom. I feel like that street should run both ways, no matter what personal frustrations you may have therein. What about this, Nick? Am I reading, this will be the last one here, but am I reading too much into this? Every time I see a quote about Peyton Turner, it's always like he's a great learner, or he's picking up so fast, or he's very strong in the weight room. These are all like the generic, like, oh, I don't know if he's actually going to be any good, but this is just how I answer a question about a first-round pick. What is your early read on Peyton Turner and potential impact that he'll have here in year one?
I think he's going to be pretty solid. And, if you watch him, I think it'd be hard for him to not be a productive player. Does he reach the full potential? I think that's a big question. Small school, still a little bit raw, but I think there's enough there. And he's a big enough and a strong enough guy that I think he can go out there and just power rush from day one and win and be productive. And I think eventually he's going to be really good. But, there are things like when you talk to him, he's just such I don't know. I've never seen a person that's happy to be playing football as him. He's just always smiling. It's just, it just seems like he's so enthusiastic about everything he does. And, it's I don't know. I don't really know how to quantify that, but I just feel like he's really embracing everything that's ahead of him. I think he's really enjoying it. And, he just seems really excited to learn and get better and all that stuff. And I think that's going to go a long way for a guy that is a little bit raw and does need to learn things. And if you're taking all that on and you're excited to do it, I think you're going to make the progress that you need to make. And, I do expect him to be, probably the third guy this year. I think he'd probably be behind Davenport and Jordan, but I do think that he's going to contribute. If you're looking at Trey Hendrickson production, yeah, probably not. No one's going to get that number of sacks. Even the top two guys might not. But
yeah.
I think that Turner's going to be a solid player. And, hey, before we go, the Rocky Top video, I thought it was the best thing you ever did. And if you actually did this interview in that accent, it would have been one of the happiest moments of my life.
Oh, my God. Nick Underhill, thank you, dude. Yeah, the Tennessee fans, they loved it, too. They're still letting me know. They're so happy. At Nick_Underhill. Nick, thank you so much, man, each and every week, filling us in on the Saints. Everybody, go sign up. Again, for NewOrleans.football, the YouTube channel, everything. But, yeah, the access, the takes that Nick has, it's second to none. Thank you, Nick.
Yeah, have a good one.
And remember, every week that's brought to you by Chris Perret at the law offices of O.C. Brown. So get in touch with Chris Perret for any of your lawyering needs.
Can you send us to break in that voice?
Can
you just dial it up like that?
Sorry, yeah, just need to find the line. Okay, coming up next here on Off the Bench, we got a little Ask the Bench brought to you by Cold Coors Light. So keep it locked right here on 104.5. Yeah.